Lufthansa Group charges you €8 to book through NDC, the channel that was supposed to make distribution free.
Hold that number, then hold the other two, because there are three.
3?
€23 if you book it through Travelport the old way, on the legacy plumbing. €8 for the same seat if you take Lufthansa's NDC content through Travelport, or Amadeus, or Sabre, and 0, nothing, no charge at all if you arrive through almost any other door.
Hold on, you just said Travelport twice at 2 different prices.
Twice, same company, 2 roads. €23 to reach Lufthansa over the old messaging standard, 8 to reach the identical seat over NDC. What is being priced is not who you are, it is the road.
3 prices then.
3 prices, same seats, same airline, same week. And every number this industry quotes about NDC adoption counts all 3 of them as the same thing.
Welcome back to the V1 Airline Retailing Report. I'm Eric Markets.
And I'm Steph Nell. Last week we argued that airlines adopt NDC when their product gets complicated enough to require it. This week Lufthansa Group published what that channel actually costs, and 2 corporate travel platforms spent 4 days engineering their way around the price list.
For anyone new, here is what we do. Every Monday we take the developments that actually move airline and travel distribution and run each one through the bull case, the bear case, and the critical take. Not the press release. The strategic read. Sources are in the episode details. Narrative 1, Lufthansa Group's distribution price list, and what the tiers on it actually mean.
Narrative 2, Singapore Airlines onboarded 2 corporate travel platforms to direct NDC connections in 4 days, Narvan on August 10th, Spotnana on the 13th. The aggregation layer lost the same customer twice in 1 week. And then the harder question underneath it, which is whether any of this survives AI agents.
2 this week rather than 3, because the first one turned out to have a great deal more in it than we thought.
It did. And the through line took me most of the week to see. Both of these are numbers that describe something that does not exist. There is no single NDC adoption figure, because Lufthansa sells 2 NDCs at different prices with different catalogues, and every chart adds them together. And there is no verified 70% at Singapore Airlines. There is a vendor claim with no denominator. This industry is running several realities at once and quoting them as one, and most of them are built on wishes rather than data.
Let's get into it. Before the news, set the table properly, because the whole story depends on a distinction we have been assuming. There are 2 roads from an airline to a seller. What are they?
EDIFACT and NDC. EDIFACT is the old one, and it is not an airline invention or a GDS invention. It is a United Nations messaging standard from the 1980s. The airline files its fares and schedules centrally, and the intermediary assembles and sells from that filing. The airline hands over the ingredients. Somebody else makes the meal, and the vocabulary is fixed, so you can express a fare and a flight, and very little else.
And NDC?
IATA's standard from 2012. The airline builds the offer itself and pushes it out whole. The seller asks, the airline answers with a priced offer of its own construction, seat, bag, bundle, boarding, together. That is the difference, not a better pipe. A different party doing the assembly.
And here's the thing I want to make sure everyone has, because it is where this story lives. Both roads run through the same companies.
Both roads run through the same companies. Amadeus, Sabre, and Travelport each carry EDIFACT traffic and NDC traffic. They are not the old world. They are intermediaries operating on both standards. So when you hear that Lufthansa charges €23 through Travelport and €8 through Travelport, that is not a contradiction. One company, 2 roads, 2 prices.
Now the charge itself. What is a distribution cost charge, and why does Lufthansa Group get credit for inventing it?
In June 2015, Lufthansa announced that from September of that year, every ticket booked through a GDS would carry a €16 surcharge, the distribution cost charge. Not the first attempt, Northwest tried a $7.50 GDS fee in 2004 and folded inside 2 days. Lufthansa was first to make one stick. The logic was honest. That channel costs the airline real money per transaction. Its own website costs almost nothing, so it stopped hiding the difference. IAG followed in November 2017, Air France KLM in April 2018.
And how is it actually collected? Because I think most people picture it as a line item on an invoice somewhere.
It is on the ticket. A fixed amount per ticket, no variation by region or fare. On EDIFACT, it is collected as a YR tax. Through the public NDC channel, it is a carrier ticketing fee, an OBT, and the detail almost nobody models. It applies to the original ticket only. First issues. No DCC on a reissue.
So it is a tax on new business specifically.
It is a tax on new business specifically. Hold that, because it comes back in the bear case.
Lufthansa Group ran 2 coordinated increases this year, and these are all EDIFACT numbers, the legacy channel. Version 6 of the DCC guideline, effective January 1st, took Amadeus from €17.50 to €18, and Sabre from $22 to $22.50. And here's where most of the coverage went wrong, so read the actual document. Travelport did not move. Travelport has been €23 since September 2022. Its 2026 increase was in dollars only, $25 to $26.50.
Good, that distinction matters for the take.
Then version 7, effective May 5th, took Amadeus to €19 across Austrian Brussels Airlines, Lufthansa, Swiss, and Air Dolomiti. Sabre and Travelport unchanged. Now switch roads. On the NDC side, the public model has sat at €8 through all of it, and it is the same 8 through all 3 of those same companies. The Travelport that costs €23 on EDIFACT costs 8 on NDC, unchanged since at least January 2025.
And the fourth number, which is the one the coverage skipped entirely. Lufthansa Group also publishes an NDC bilateral model. The guideline's own words, provides access to the NDC smart offer of Lufthansa Group with 0 DCC.
Stop there, because I think most people hear bilateral and assume it means a big private deal between the airline and somebody enormous. Explain the 2 models properly.
Worth doing carefully because the names mislead. Lufthansa publishes 2 ways to reach its NDC content. The public model, in the guideline's exact words, is available through GDS NDC aggregators only. Amadeus, Sabre, Travelport. That is the €8. The bilateral model is everything else, a direct API connection, or Lufthansa's own free web booking tool called Spark, or any of more than 100 certified independent technology providers. That is the 0.
So bilateral does not mean you built your own pipe.
It does not, and I assumed it did before I read the terms. No engineers, no volume. Lufthansa's conditions say the contract comes into effect when you register on its NDC Partner Program website. An agency with an IATA number signs up and uses Spark for nothing. No threshold, no minimum, no approval process.
Is the content the same on both sides?
No, and this is the part that matters. The 2 models get different catalogues and Lufthansa publishes the difference. Bilateral gets what it calls the smart offer. Public gets the base offer. Missing from the base offer, economy basic, economy light, business comfort, green fares, intercontinental light fares, preferential pricing on the first bag, and on seat reservation. Group bookings are not available in the public model at all. Lufthansa's own words on price. The lowest fares are available when booking via an NDC channel, bilateral model, and bilateral is worldwide. Public is, their phrase, available in selected markets.
One housekeeping note before the analysis. Trade coverage paired the May 5th increase with ITA Airways joining Lufthansa Group's NDC platforms, because both happened that day. ITA is not a DCC carrier. Same date, different thing.
And one piece of context that makes the bull case, because it is easy to be cynical about a surcharge. Roughly half of Lufthansa Group's indirect bookings now flow through NDC. Compare that to ARC's number for the US, where NDC was 21.2% of settled transactions in December, about a fifth, and more than 3/4 of Lufthansa Group's bookings, direct and indirect together, now happen outside EDIFACT entirely.
So give me the bull case and be fair to it.
The DCC works, and a decade of data says so. A per-ticket price signal moves volume off legacy plumbing faster than any technical mandate ever has. No cutover deadline, no content withdrawal, no fight with the agency community about access. Just a number on a ticket that makes the expensive channel visibly expensive. Half the group's indirect volume on NDC against a fifth of US agency transactions is not a marketing claim. It is the outcome of a pricing decision, and every carrier that ran a decade of NDC evangelism with no price attached should look at that and be uncomfortable.
And where does it break down?
A surcharge is a tax, and taxes get passed through or routed around. Corporate buyers with negotiated content treat the DCC as a line item to claw back at the next RFP. TMCs absorb it and resent it, and the agencies whose technology cannot consume NDC cleanly keep booking the legacy way and eat 19 or 23 euros a ticket because the alternative is a development budget they do not have. The lever moves the willing and taxes the stuck, and because it hits first issues only, it falls on new bookings and not at all on servicing, so the agency writing new tickets pays more than the one managing an existing book. That is backwards from anything an airline says it wants.
Give me the critical take. And I do not think it is the obvious one about relocating the toll booth.
It is not. Look at what these three prices actually sort on. Not your size, not your technology, not even whether you use an intermediary, because you can be bilateral through an aggregator. They sort on which intermediary. 23 to reach Lufthansa through Travelport on EDIFACT. 8 to reach its NDC through Amadeus, Sabre or Travelport. 0 through anybody else, including 100+ independent providers doing the same technical job.
Then let me push on the 8 because there is an obvious objection. Is that not the GDS recovering its own cost and probably making money on top by embedding an aggregation fee in the booking?
That is the right challenge. The answer is yes, and it makes the story better. Follow the money. Lufthansa collects the €8 on the ticket as a carrier ticketing fee, so the traveller pays it. Lufthansa uses it to offset what the GDS charges Lufthansa for that NDC booking. Amadeus has told its own investors it expects to make as much per NDC booking as on EDIFACT, if not more. And Travelport says on its own site that GDS incentives and overrides still apply to NDC bookings, so part of it goes back out to the agency.
Trace the whole chain then.
The traveller pays €8. The airline passes it to the GDS. The GDS keeps a margin and rebates some of it to the seller as an incentive, on the standard that was sold to this industry for a decade as the thing that would remove the intermediary.
And the structural proof it is about the GDS specifically.
Is in the rate card. Bilateral is 0, and bilateral includes independent certified aggregators. Same standard, same messages, same technical job. So a middleman is not the trigger. A particular kind of middleman is, and the reason is clean. The independents charge the seller. Duffel publishes its rate card, $3 an order, plus 1%, billed to the seller. The GDS charges the airline, and the airline passes its side to the traveller.
What can we not say?
How much? No GDS publishes an NDC transaction fee, and Lufthansa has never said what the 8 is for. I read 3 versions of the guideline. There is no rationale in any of them. The one carrier that has said it out loud is Air France KLM, which calls its version an aggregator surcharge covering the cost of using GDS aggregators. And here is the tell that the 8 is not a precise cost mirror. The EDIFACT charge is differentiated, 19, 22.50, 23, and Lufthansa says that is to reflect GDS cost accurately. The NDC charge is a flat 8 across all three, a blended number doing two jobs, recovering cost and steering volume.
So what is the take?
That the fee is the smaller half anyway. The bigger half is the catalogue. Lufthansa built a deliberately inferior version of its own content, and the only way to get it is to arrive through a GDS. No economy basic, no light, no group bookings at all. Cost recovery explains a charge. It does not explain removing group bookings, and whichever half you look at, it lands in the same place, on the ticket. The traveller funds the intermediary's margin and the seller's incentive on the standard that was supposed to disintermediate both.
The obvious pushback is that airlines have always priced by channel.
They always have, and I concede that properly. Commissions, overrides, private fares, direct-only promotions. None of this is new in kind. What is new in degree is that the gap is now large enough and public enough to change routing decisions rather than just margins, and that the adoption scoreboard cannot see any of it.
Explain that.
When ARC reports 21.2% of settled transactions on NDC, or Lufthansa says half its indirect volume is NDC, those numbers count a public model booking and a bilateral model booking as the same thing. They are not the same thing. Different price, different catalogue, different market coverage, and the airline itself gives them different names. So the single most quoted metric in this industry is aggregating two products the airline separates by name, by price, and by content. Everybody is measuring NDC adoption. Nobody is measuring which NDC.
And the implication?
If the cheap fares and the full catalogue live on the bilateral side, the GDS NDC channel is not a competitor to it. It is a holding pen for sellers who have not moved yet. And Lufthansa did not invent this. British Airways and Iberia have exempted NDC from the distribution technology charge since 2017. What Lufthansa has that the others do not is the middle rung, and the middle rung is what reveals the intent.
Second story needs one piece of groundwork. What does an NDC aggregator actually do?
It solves a multiplication problem. Roughly 80 carriers have a certified NDC API live today. Several thousand sellers need to consume them, and every carrier implemented the standard slightly differently. That is not 80 integrations, it is a matrix. And note the number, 80 with NDC live against more than 400 still reachable only through EDIFACT. Aggregators sit in the middle, absorb the variation, and give the seller one integration that reaches many carriers. The independents do it, Duffel, Vertel, TP Connect, Travel Fusion, and the GDS companies do it too. It is a genuinely valuable job.
And a direct connect is the opposite.
A direct connect is the seller building and maintaining a point-to-point integration into one airline's own API. You take on the version upgrades, the certification, the servicing edge cases, all of it, in exchange for full fidelity content and no intermediary in the path.
On August 10th, Navan, which has been public on the NASDAQ since last October, announced it had upgraded its Singapore Airlines NDC access from an aggregated connection to a direct connection, running on the carrier's Amadeus Altéa NDC 21.3 API. Navan says over 70% of Singapore Airlines bookings now go through the NDC channel. 2 precision points on that. It is Navan's number, published in Navan's release, with no period and no measurement basis given, and Singapore Airlines has published nothing. And Singapore Airlines did participate, with a quote from Gan Kai Fong, its general manager of distribution. Amadeus issued nothing at all. So, vendor announced, airline endorsed.
And Navan did not name the aggregator it replaced, so neither will we.
Then 3 days later, on August 13th, Spotnana announced its own direct NDC connection to Singapore Airlines. Same carrier. Gan Chai Fong gave Spotnana a quote as well. And the trade coverage of the Spotnana deal carries a claim the Navan coverage does not, that the NDC content comes in below EDIFACT, and that distribution surcharges are eliminated. I went looking for those on Spotnana's own site and could not find either one, so treat that as reporting, not as a published company figure.
2 independent platforms, 1 carrier, 4 days. That is not 2 companies having the same idea in the same week. That is a carrier running a program and announcing it through its partners.
And one thing the coverage mostly implied and got wrong. This is not Navan's first direct connect. Navan already runs direct NDC connections with SAS, Qantas, ITA Airways, Emirates, and United, going back to March 2024. Bull case.
The direct connect is the endgame NDC actually promised, arriving on schedule. Full fidelity offers with no translation loss, negotiated corporate fares, continuous pricing, 24-hour holds, self-service exchange, and cancel. For a carrier where the seller says 70% of volume already runs on NDC, the aggregation layer has stopped adding value and started adding cost and a hop. And there is a second bull case that connects back to story 1 without depending on anybody's press release. Where a carrier runs a channel surcharge, a point-to-point integration sits on the untaxed side of it, and it also tends to sit on the side where the full catalogue lives, cheaper and better content, in the same move.
Bear case.
Direct connects do not scale linearly, and everyone knows it and announces them anyway. Navan and Spotnana can each justify a bespoke integration to Singapore Airlines because their volume supports it. No TMC hand-builds direct connects to 200 airlines, and no airline hand-builds them to 5,000 sellers. The moment it becomes the expectation rather than the exception, the long tail on both sides gets stranded, and you have rebuilt the fragmentation the aggregation existed to solve, 1 tier higher.
And the number itself?
The number is soft. Navan's release says over 70% of Singapore Airlines bookings are made through the NDC channel. One trade outlet rewrote it as 70% of the bookings made via Navan, a completely different and vastly smaller claim. 2 incompatible versions in 3 days, no airline source behind either. That is a vendor claim, not a market fact.
Critical take.
The less obvious one comes out of the first story, and it cuts against the easy version. Read the benefits actually claimed for these deals. Not latency, not richer content, lower cost per booking and no channel surcharge. That is a pricing outcome, not a technology one. But here is the uncomfortable part, and Lufthansa's own terms are what expose it. You do not need to build a direct connect to escape a channel surcharge. Lufthansa will give a small IATA agency the untaxed tier for a website registration. So when a Navan or a Spotnana spends real engineering money on a point-to-point integration, cost avoidance is not the whole story. They are buying the relationship, the full catalogue and control of the servicing path. And that is what sorts by balance sheet, because the registration is free and the integration is not.
Here's my problem with the whole direct connect story, though. And it is the thing we spent all of episodes 8, 15, and 16 on. Does any of this survive AI agents? Because if search economics break, the endgame everyone is describing might be the wrong endgame.
That is the right question, and it forced me back into the documents where I found something that means we owe you a correction.
Go.
4 episodes running, we have said no carrier has published authentication, rate limits, or a price for the query. 2 of those stand. The rate limit does not. Lufthansa Group's NDC terms, section 7.1, quote, "The Lufthansa Group members will cover the shopping costs until a maximum look-to-book ratio of 500 to 1. If the ratio is greater, the Lufthansa Group members reserve the right to take any appropriate measures they deem necessary, including but not limited to deactivating your access right."
That is a rate limit.
Defined metric, specific number, stated consequence, word for word in that document since May 2023. It is not an agent policy, no AI language, no bot language, nothing about automation. It was written for agencies polling badly 3 years before any of this. But we said nobody had published a number, somebody had, and we spent 4 episodes asking for a document we had not read. That is on us, and it is exactly the failure we have been criticizing in everybody else.
Is Lufthansa alone?
Alone in publishing. United reportedly enforces one, but that is 2 trade outlets citing TMC sources, and nobody outside United's contracts can tell you the number. These caps are widespread and almost universally private. Lufthansa published the one everybody else keeps in the Bilateral.
Now put it against the agent numbers.
500 to 1 is the cap. Current industry look-to-book is 10 to 20,000 to 1, and agentic projections run to 200,000. So a seller at agent-era ratios is 20 to 400 times over Lufthansa's published limit.
Which answers my question.
It does, and not the way the direct connect story is being sold. In the agent era, access stops being a technical question and becomes a contractual one, and the only sellers with a contract are the ones the airline can identify. So the direct connect survives, but not as a cost play or a content play. It survives as a credential. The identified seller negotiates a ratio, a price, a service level. Traffic arriving anonymously through an aggregation layer gets throttled first, because the carrier cannot tell whose it is.
And that changes what the zero tier was ever for.
Completely. The untaxed model requires registration. Lufthansa is not giving away access. It is buying identity. It will let you in for nothing worldwide, with the full catalogue, if it knows exactly who you are and can meter you. That is ours, not something any carrier has said. But look at what is being exchanged and tell me it is not the trade.
Honest counterweight?
2. The mitigation being built right now is not carrier policy, it is filtering at the aggregator layer. Amadeus shipped a machine learning filter in December, and Air France KLM says it blocked more than 70% of irrelevant traffic. Somebody else is solving it upstream. And nobody has published rigorous data on where agent search volume lands. So the identity argument is our projection, not a measurement.
And meanwhile, the commercial framework is being built without airlines in it.
Google confirmed agentic hotel booking live in testing on August 7th. Across that program and its direct offers pilot, the transacting partners are 6 hotel and OTA brands, not one airline. Sabre is advising on the airside, which is not the same as a carrier being in the room.
Here's the spine, and it is not really about Lufthansa. Both of this week's stories are the same shape. Somebody quoted a number that describes a thing that does not exist.
There is no such thing as NDC adoption. There are 2 Lufthansa NDCs at 2 prices with 2 catalogues, and every chart adds them together. And there is no verified 70% at Singapore Airlines. There is a vendor claim with no denominator and 2 incompatible published versions inside 3 days.
And us.
And us. We spent 4 episodes asking for a published rate limit that had been sitting in a contract since 2023. So say it plainly. This industry is running several realities at once and quoting them as one, and most are built on wishes rather than data. We are not standing outside that. We are in it.
For anyone new, the short version.
Almost everything in airline distribution looks like a technology argument, and almost none of it is. It is a pricing argument wearing a technology costume. 14 years of NDC evangelism moved this industry to about 1/5 of settled volume. One surcharge moved Lufthansa Group to half.
And the sharper version, for the people who have been here a while.
Go to the document somebody had to be accurate in. Not the announcement. The rate card, because the airline bills against it. The terms, because they have to be enforceable. The agent documentation, because sellers have to transact. The investor report, because shareholders have to be told. Every real finding in this episode came from one of those four. None came from a newsroom post.
And the metric.
Split your NDC number in two. How much arrives through a GDS and how much does not, because Lufthansa has now published that those are different products at different prices. Then find your own look-to-book ratio by carrier and hold it next to 500 to 1. In the agent era, the seller an airline can identify is the seller who gets to keep asking questions.
If you own a channel P&L, send this to whoever writes your distribution business case. Not to agree with us. To argue about the pricing out loud before the next contract cycle closes.
And the standing ask, narrower now than it was. Authentication and a price for the query. Lufthansa published the rate limit 3 years ago for agencies rather than machines. Nobody has published the other two, and nobody has written any of it for the buyer that is actually coming. If you are the carrier about to, we want to hear from you.
I'm Eric Markets.
I'm Steph Nell. Thanks for listening.
Read the rate card, not the roadmap. Stay sharp out there.